For today's notes, we are going to be working on the Unit 4 notebook for linear equations, and we are going to start with Introduction to Slopes. We're on the first page, page 4.1. So slope, it's a feature of a linear equation of a line, and we are going to go through the step-by-step process to find the slope of a line when you have a graph. So the first thing I want to point out is you want to plot all the points on the line where it intersects exactly with both grid lines. And this can be tricky sometimes, but what I'm really talking about is when you've got your grid lines, right? And then you've got your actual line. I'm looking for where everything meets, okay? So everything has to meet. So when you look at this first example here, right? If I look at this line, the first good point that I see where everything meets, grid lines and line, is right here. And as I travel further down the line, here's another good point where everything meets. And here's another good point where everything meets. And I know this seems simple, but believe it or not, this does sometimes cause problems. So I want to really go through that. So we plotted all the points where everything meets. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to draw right triangles connecting the points, making stairs. And it doesn't matter which direction I do this in. I can do it in the up over direction, but it just has to be a right triangle, right? So I just have to make a right triangle where the part of the line is the hypotenuse, and these are the two legs of the triangle. So those are the only triangles I can draw, so I drew them. Next, I need to get those leg lengths. So notice the leg, right? The length of each leg of the right triangles. And those are those vertical and horizontal lines that we just drew. Those are the legs. So for this, it's going to be the same for each. So the vertical leg is 2, right? I go from here to here, that's 2. And then when I go from here over to here, it's 3. So I have a vertical of 2, a horizontal of 3. So I wrote the leg lengths. So now is where I actually start to write what the slope is. And the slope is the vertical leg length over the horizontal leg length. And when I say that, vertical means the leg that's the up down, and horizontal means the one that's left to right. So when I look at my picture, I have a vertical of 2. So I'm going to put 2 because it's going to be a fraction. And when I look at the horizontal leg, right, it's going to be 3 because that's horizontal. So it's going to be 2 over 3. So that's my slope, but I'm not done because I have to figure out if my slope is positive or negative. And from a graph, what you want to do is you just want to look at your slope and figure out, here's the left end of my line, right? Here's the right end of my line. So I start at the left, I go to the right. And when I do that, I start at left, go to right, I go up. And that means that my slope is positive. So when this says it goes up from left to right, that's what it means. You go to the left end of the line, start to travel. If you go up as you go to the right, it's positive. If you go down, it's negative. One other way to think of it from left to right, because this is how you write or read, if this was a line that you had to write your name on, you would write it in the up direction. So if I had to write the word slope, I would be writing it up if this was my line that I had to write it on. So I'm going to circle this because it's positive, right? So my slope for this line, and the slope variable is m, is positive. So I don't need to write the positive, 2 over 3. So let's go to our next example. Again, I'm going to plot the line, all the points on the line as I go through the line. So if I look at this line, I have a nice point here, and then I have another one here. I have another one here. I keep going. I keep going. So I have a bunch of triangles to draw. So I'm going to draw them this way this time. So notice in the first example, I drew the triangles kind of up above the line. I'm going to draw them below it. It doesn't matter which way I do it. Either way works. You just have to be consistent. So I drew all those right triangles. Now I got to get the leg lengths. So the leg lengths are what the lines I just drew. So for this one, the leg length is 1. And for this one, the leg length is 2. And it's going to be the same for each one. And now I'm going to actually find my slope. So I'm going to look for my vertical leg length. And that's going to be the 1, right? This is the vertical leg length. My horizontal leg length is going to be the 2, right? That's the one that goes this way. That's going to be 2. So I found my slope. Next, I have to figure out, is it positive or negative? So this is when I look at my line. Here's the left end of the line. Here's the right end of the line. And when I go from left to right, I'm going down, so that's going to be negative. And if this was a piece of paper and this was a line that I had to write on, the direction that I would be writing would be in the down direction. So this is a negative slope. So when I'm done with this, m equals -1/2. Okay, one thing I want to point out with these two lines is I could have just picked 2 points, say this one and this one. So when you might find when you do this that you're not going to pick all the points sometimes. And when I do that, I'm going to draw my triangle in the other direction, right? And when I do that, I'm going to look at my leg lengths and get my leg length. So this one here from here to here is 4. From here to here is 6. So if I go to write my slope down in this fourth step here, it's going to be 4/6. And I need to reduce that. Well, guess what? If you divide top and bottom by 2, you get 2/3. So notice you get the same thing whether you pick points that are closer or further away. They just have to be valid points that fit this criteria. But the closer the point, the less likely you need to reduce. So that's one benefit of trying to find your points that are closer to each other. So I just wanted to point that out, and let's go to the next page. So I'm going to do this one, plot all the points on the line. So let's go back and look at this line. So here's a good point. I'm going to keep traveling down. Here's a good point. And I've got these 3 points. I'm going to draw my triangle. So I plotted my points. I'm going to draw my triangles. There they are. And now I'm going to write those leg lengths. So this leg length is 2. This leg length is 3. I don't need to write the other ones. And now I'm going to find my slope. That vertical up, down, that number is 3. My horizontal left to right, that number is 2. So I have 3/2 for my slope. Now I've got to figure out, is it positive or negative, right? What do I have to do? I got to look at it from left to right. This is the left end of the line. This is the right end of the line. So when I go from left to right, I'm headed down. So it's negative. So my variable for slope is m equals, this is a negative slope, and it's 3/2. So there's my slope. And then the last example. So I'm going to look for points. I come along, there's a point where everything meets, and there's a point where everything meets. So I only have 2. I'm going to draw my triangle. So I plot my points, drew my triangle. I had 1 I could draw, write my leg length. So from here to here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. From here to here is 2. And then my slope is going to be the vertical leg length, which is 5, over the horizontal leg length, which is 2. So I've got 5/2 for my slope. And then this is the left end of the line. This is the right end of the line. So from left to right, it's going up. So this is a positive slope. So my slope is positive 5/2. So that's kind of a deep dive into what you need to do to find the slope of a line. So when we go to the next page, let's look at the notes for what slope really means. So what is slope? Slope is a rate of change, and it's basically a ratio. And you noticed we had a vertical over a horizontal ratio that shows how one variable, so a ratio that shows how one variable changes with respect to another. So slope's always going to be comparing 2 things. So it's usually a fraction. On a linear graph, this is called the slope, right? And it's usually a fraction. And if it's not, sometimes you have to turn it into a fraction by having it go over 1. So next up, slope is written as a ratio of the vertical change. So that's that vertical change is like this, right? And it's sometimes they call it the rise. I sometimes call it the drop if the slope is negative, but it's the vertical change to the horizontal change. And horizontal change is left to right. They call that the run, so they call slope rise over run. You'll see that a lot between any 2 points on the line. So just like we did, we drew a triangle and we had like the rise over the run when we did it. This remains constant. So your line is a straight line which indicates you're always going to get those same triangles between the points. That's going to be constant. And slope is written as a fraction, like I said earlier. And you have to put it in simplest form usually. And if you get the points that are closest together, you will get the simplest form. And the variable is m. Why? Nobody really knows. I like to think about it like a mountain slope, right? That's where that m comes from. I'm guessing on that. I really don't know. Okay, so let's go back to types of slope. We did positive and negative in our examples. So positive is when I have a line and from left to right, it goes up, it's positive. Negative is when I have a line and from left to right, it goes down, it's negative. A horizontal line, and that's a line that looks like this, has a 0 slope. So that's something to try to remember. And then vertical lines, which go up, down like this, have an undefined slope. So how do you remember this? Well, one thing to think about is horizontal and 0 have a z in them. And when you think about horizontal, you think about you know, your horizon, right? You lay down your horizontal. Vertical, think about jumping, right? That's an up-down activity. So, and sometimes I think like V and U are close in the alphabet. I don't know. You got to come up with your own plan on how you got to remember these two because they are very easy to confuse. So, slope, once again, rise or drop over run. So it's this over this. So these examples that you're going to do have given you points. If you look, they gave you 2 points. So you're going to draw your triangle, right? They gave you the points. You're going to count the length of the legs. So you're going from this point to this point. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on this one. And then on this one, 1, 2, 3, 4. And your slope is going to be the vertical change, which is the 7, over the horizontal change, which is the 4. And if you look at this from left to right, it goes up, so it's positive, so I can leave it like that. My next example, number 2, here are my 2 points that they gave me. I'm going to draw my right triangle, so I'm going to draw this down to where that point is. I'm going to come over, and now I'm going to count my vertical, which is, my vertical, which is 3. My horizontal is pretty long. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Remember, you're going from here to here, so that's 9. So when I go to write my slope, it's m equals, the vertical change is 9, the horizontal, 3, the horizontal change is 9, but I got two things going on. One is when I look at the left end and the right end of the line, it's going down, so this is going to be a negative slope. And then this fraction can be simplified. 3/9 is really 1/3, right? I can divide top and bottom by 3 to get negative 1/3, so it's a negative 1/3 slope. If I had picked points that were closer together, I could have seen that 1/3 a little quicker, but it still comes out the same either way. So number 3, they give me 2 points, but do you notice something about this line? It's a horizontal line, right? Horizontal lines have a 0 slope. I don't need to do any math. I just look at it, I know it's 0, right? I know it from here to here, it's horizontal. This one's a vertical line, right? And I know that vertical lines have a slope that's undefined. So 0 is a number, right? So when it's horizontal, it's the number 0. When it's vertical, it is the word undefined. There's no slope that fits this. So you are going to do page 4-4 on your own. Same idea. You've got your 2 points. You're going to draw your right triangle. You're going to come up with your leg lengths to get your slope. And don't forget to figure out if it's positive or negative by looking at the left end and the right end and figuring out if it goes up or down to get the sign of the slope. And it's m equals whatever you get for your slope when you're done.